So there's been a lot of talk lately on Facebook and LinkedIn and different news sites. For instance, CBS News, which I'll be quoting from right here. And the talk is about coffee causing cancer. And the article, I'm quoting from the cbsnews.com site, trouble is brewing for coffee lovers in California, where a judge ruled that sellers must post scary warnings about cancer risks. But how frightened should we be of a daily cup of joe? Not very, some scientists and available evidence seem to suggest. Scientific concerns about coffee have eased in recent years, and many studies even suggest that, and he's quoting an expert here, at the minimum, coffee is neutral. If anything, there is fairly good evidence of the benefit of coffee on cancer. And it goes on to quote various experts on why this has come to light. And basically, it comes down to a chemical that comes out when you cook coffee. And it's a possible carcinogen, and it's called acrylamide. And so, says these so-called experts, these idiot courts, they say, well, it's a possibility that once you go to roasting your coffee, especially decaf coffee, the article says, that causes some very deadly carcinogenic chemical to come out. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is because this is a symptom of the times that we live in. This is really stupid stuff. I mean, classically stupid, paranoid, obsessive behavior. And this is why I say we need a war. For those of you too young to remember, back when 9/11 happened, for the few months following 9/11, everybody was kind of one mind. And people didn't do stupid stuff like this. They didn't find little connections to make big deals out of things. So I was in the gym when I was doing some tricep extensions when 9/11 happened, and the lady who owned the gym came up to me and said, "Joe, we're being attacked." And it was as though all of the world forgot about their differences and started uniting, and everybody was lending support to everybody. And I mean Muslims in different communities, I mean different groups that were special interest groups. They forgot about their differences and they started working as one. And yes, there was price gouging and there was gas prices going up. There was fear, but basically people went out and said, we need to go out there and spend money. We need to start helping the economy because of the blow that Muhammad Atta and the terrorists did to the USA. So my point in bringing that up is when humanity has a cause and has a united interest together, they stop doing stupid shit like this. They stop finding little studies to make an issue out of. But when we don't have an enemy, we start doing more of it because there's something in humanity. There's an us versus them mentality that comes from tribal times, from less evolved times, that makes us monsters. So what do? We get people in labs sitting around saying, you know what? I found a deadly chemical here. And instead of associating it with any deadly chemical, such as arsenic in rice, or smoke in the air, something you breathe all the time, instead of doing something like that, they say, aha, we need to put a warning label. And so the article goes on to explain how cookies and French fries and cakes have some of this same acrylamide, this poison in them. But rather than saying it's only about 100 to 300 parts per billion, but all of them, your body, if you have a normal body, if you have a normal liver and kidneys, you're going to filter that right out. The same way when you walk into a cologne and smoke-filled room, you're going to filter that right out. It's going to take it. It's going to do what a healthy body does. But instead they say, well, this may cause cancer. Goddamn, how long have people been drinking coffee? Far longer than modern times. What have we learned? What have we learned about the modern rises in cancer? The modern rises in diabetes? The modern rises in kidney failure? They all increase as the population increases, because you would expect to see that. So going back in the day, you've had people drinking coffee, you've had people drinking milk. Speaking of, I got to listen the other day to this little shit talk about how type 1 diabetes is caused by drinking cow's milk. And he really thought he knew his stuff. So he presented a case in which he showed a bunch of connections because the protein strand simulates the protein itself in the beta cells, and therefore it gets confused. Now, in his presentation, this young little shit did not even bother to mention that many of the people who made his own study, it was off his own study, he didn't even mention that they had never had cow's milk. These were like 2-year-old babies, 3-4-year-old babies who had not had any milk. Just the mother's milk if they were breastfed, and sometimes not even that. Some of them were formula going because some of the mothers didn't make milk. But he glossed right over that and went into this tirade about how a farm boy's diet can get you into a lot of trouble, which is actually contrary to the evidence, because that is one of the stupidest things you could ever say. One of the healthiest diets of all is a farm boy's diet, because you get exposed to all of the bacteria without the help of medications, which you could argue are the worst things because they kill your immune system's ability to fight what is normally in the environment. So the guy did the same thing from the vegan point of view as he did, as these fool little scientists are doing. You see why we need a war? Do you see why we need conflict? Because that us versus them, that paranoid, schizophrenic little part of us says we need an in-group and we need an out-group. The in-group are the people you trust. The in-group are the people you trust. And the out-group is the people who are outside of your group that you don't trust. And when you have a big out-group, when you have a lot of people, when you have no conflict going on, you have a whole bunch of people who are a threat to you, a perceived threat to you. So you say, I don't know, it's always these cancer chemicals. It's always this secondhand smoke. It's always these carcinogens. Or, another one big that's today is, that I always hear about, is artificial sweeteners. Aspartame. Aspartame is bad. Aspartame gets an insulin response. And then, of course, who do they quote? My friend Jason Fung. They go right to Jason Fung and they say, aha, there's an insulin response from it. There's no insulin response from it. But that doesn't stop them from blaming either their failure to lose weight or their slow weight loss or their problems with their joints, or they'll blame something on it. And they'll do that because it's the most logical thing to do, is to troubleshoot. Because we humans find patterns by nature. It's what we do. We go out and we find things to blame. Just like people that email me about why they're not losing weight, and they say, I need to weigh my food. No, it's not because you need to weigh your food. It's because you're going to have to give it more time. You may be eating too much, but there are other ways to address it. And you've got to wait. And there may be other issues. But don't look for desperate patterns to try to find stuff wrong. So getting back to the article here, in the case of coffee causing cancer, never mind all of these generations having gone by, and cancer rates were the same per population. Now, lo and behold, people in California have to put a warning label, coffee may cause cancer, which is complete and utter horseshit. But it's logical from the standpoint of this paranoid nation. So, and for those people, for those of you who still think that you get an insulin response from diet sodas, listen, are you going to quit using toothpaste because toothpaste has artificial sweetener in it? No, of course you're not. That little amount, you're not even going to worry about, even if you disagree with me. Putting this all in perspective, in-group, out-group morality. When it's a survival advantage, when you suspect that something is hurting you, you're naturally going to go on kind of a little bit of a witch hunt. And that's what this coffee bullshit here is. They're going after and saying, aha, we got to find a reason for these cancer. We don't have any enemies at present, so let's create one. That's exactly what this is. This is an attempt to create an enemy out of nothing. Coffee's not your enemy. And of course, as the article goes on, I'm going to link to it. As the article goes on to point out, a lot of scientists took issue with this ruling. It's already passed, though. That's what California, if you're in California and you're a coffee person, a coffee maker, you're selling coffee, that's what you have to do. You have to go out of your way to put a label that says this may cause cancer because it has acrylamide. Never mind the fact that it's only 200-300 parts per billion, like I said. Never mind the fact that your normal immune system is going to wick out what your body can't use. It's there, and on the off chance that someone may get butthurt and want to sue, you have to put something there. Hey, I'm in the corporate world. I'm in the corporate world. I know how this is. So that's the complete cup of nonsense for today. Not a cup of joe, it's a cup of nonsense. That's the sort of crap you go and you get. You find people that say, there's arsenic in rice. You find people that say there's acrylamide in coffee or French fries. And they say you have to watch out because there is sugar in fruit. You see, it doesn't matter whether it's secondhand smoke or whether it's sugar in fruit or whether it's cholesterol in eggs. You're always going to find in-group, out-group people that are going to get in with their camp, and they're going to start finding witches in other people's philosophies. Just like the vegans do with a protein, they'll say, well, you don't need that much cholesterol is what causes heart attacks. And it's not uncommon to watch a vegan put up a video about somebody who died in their 40s or 50s and say, he was an egg eater. That's not why he died, you dumb fuck. People die all the time. That's part of the diversity of life. That's part of the cycling out of all of us. It's going to happen to you. You may or may not eat a certain way. Why do I have to say this? What the hell is the problem with people? Why do I have to make this point? This is complete nonsense. Of course, you're going to have people who, for whatever reason, die when they're 10. You're going to have people who, like a friend that happened to a friend of mine in 1998, guy I used to hang out with, he was about 10 years older than me. All rights and privileges, he was good health. One day he was driving with his wife in their Toyota Tundra. He had a mini stroke and he ended up in the hospital. I went to see him. He died before I got there. Really sad because his kids were teenagers. How did that happen? There is not a line of reasoning you can give me that would satisfy me in terms of what he did to, quote, deserve that. Of course, he did nothing. There was nothing that can be attributed to that. But you and I could both cite tons of examples. Why are some people allergic to peanuts? Do we have to go and put a bunch of labels on things? No. It's up to the people who are allergic to them to look out for themselves. You don't go to a school like some of these idiotic school districts are now doing and say, we got to make sure there are no peanuts in the whole school. Can't do that. That's insane. Insane behavior. So this coffee cancer business, it's just the same as the rice issue, the rice arsenic fear that came before it. It's the same as the sugar and fruit thing. It's the same as the eggs having bad cholesterol. It's the same as the secondhand smoke fears. It's the same sort of hodgepodge. And there's, unfortunately, folks, there's no end in sight. We have to deal with this sort of stuff, which is a constant albatross for all of us. So what do? We keep applying common sense and hopefully get rid of some of this trash reasoning. And that's what it is. It is trash reasoning. It is utter nonsense.